This podcast contains some strong language and some stories involving violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Warfighters United, where veterans' voices are heard and transitional resources and programs provided. This podcast is sponsored by the VFW, a service organization that provides our military and veterans resources representation throughout the nation. They also enhance community support and the camaraderie we all miss being in the military. Join the VFW today and make a difference. Today on our podcast, we have Sierra Delta, a buddy of mine, BJ Ganem. He is the CEO and founder of Sierra Delta, which is a dog organization helping us partner our furry friends with our veterans throughout the nation. Hey, BJ, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, and thanks for creating the show. Yeah, you brought a lot of great information.
Yeah, no, and we're always trying to enhance that information. But before we start with Sierra Delta, I always like to interview the guests just to get a little background resources. I know you're in the Marine Corps, and I'm sure that we chewed some of the same ground together, especially in 2004 and maybe in 2003. I don't know how many tours you did, but
no, I got the one.
Just the one, huh?
Good. Yeah.
So who were you with?
Half, since I was with that golf company, 2nd Battalion, 24th Marines at that time. I initially joined in 96, served 4 years on active duty. But, you know, at that time in the late 90s, there was nothing going on. So we were a Marine Corps active duty infantry unit in 2nd LAR, just running around yelling bang, bang at each other. You know, it just didn't meet my expectations. So I wanted to get out there and try my best in the corporate world, but I really loved being a Marine, you know, and it's funny to say that now because growing up in my hometown of Savannah, Georgia, you know, I was kicked out of high school for being a disciplinary problem. Like I've always had a lot of problem with authority and still do to some point. But, you know, so when I joined the Marine Corps, it's because I was politely asked to leave Georgia Southern University after posting a 1.4 GPA. And but I loved it. So when I got off active duty the first time, I just transferred to the Ready Reserves and joined right up with Golf Company, 2nd Battalion, 24th Marines here in Madison, Wisconsin. And that was one of the reasons why I moved to Wisconsin, because they had an infantry unit, and I was lucky enough to get a job at Kraft Foods, and the rest, you know, is pretty much history.
Right, and so you went over in 2004, and you were wounded pretty good by an IED, I believe, in November. Was that somewhere in the Sunni Triangle, or?
Yeah, right there in the Al Anbar province. You know, in between Mahmudiya and Baghdad. We were all in Mahmudiya, Ludafiya, Iskandariyah, all the Riyas.
Yeah, all the Riyas. So, there is quite a bit.
All the Riyas. Yeah, they were, but. Yeah, you know, we did the ghosting of patrols. You know, we had an AO, about 25 square miles, and our job was to keep the MSR Tampa open. We were guarding a couple of bridges and then patrolling around and acting in support for a lot of different stuff. And, you know, I mean, you were there too. So it's kind of convoluted in the fact that, you know, you're in war. Nobody wants to see a war. But at the same time, it's the same things that you train for. And with, you know, that unit, we've been training for 5 years together. So we were as close as any units can be, and we still are. We just celebrated our 20-year anniversary last year of our deployment, and we had about 90% of the company come back to Madison for a weekend of fun. And it was really good to see everybody.
Yeah, we're about to have our reunion here this month for LAR in D.C., and I go to those, and that's always a great time to catch up with your other Marines, your other friends, your service members, and to see what they are and what they've used to be able to transition. So after you got wounded, did you go to Germany and then over to the Wounded Warrior Regiment, or how did that all evolve afterwards?
The Wounded Warrior Regiment, I think, was just getting started. Like, I don't think it was actually, I mean, it was, you know, not what it is today, you know, what it was in like 12 and 13 and 8. But, yeah, I went to Germany. I got injured on Thanksgiving night of 2004. IED killed my gunner, Ryan Contafio, severely wounded me, injured 2 other Marines that were able to get bandaged up and get back to duty. And, you know, we took 5 KIAs from that deployment, and then a couple of, you know, people that were put out for injuries like mine. So it was, I went to Germany, and from Germany I went to Bethesda. This is before they combined. Mm-hmm. And that's when I met President Bush for the first time, was at Bethesda. And then I was transferred to Walter Reed and finished up there, you know, retired out from Walter Reed in October of 2005.
And then you started going back to school. I see you graduated from USC?
I did, yeah. So I got an undergrad in psychology from St. Leo's, and then I got my master's degree in social work with emphasis on military life from the University of Southern California. And I used Voc Rehab for that, and it was a great program.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of programs, and you know, what's funny is people get out of the military and they look at their GI Bill, and I mean, almost 40% don't even use it, which is just crazy to me that nobody would use their GI Bill, all that free money that they earned to go to school. But I mean, some people like transitional jobs or resourcing to, you know, being a blue collar worker on a line somewhere in a factory, so they don't really need to go to school. But nowadays, they can actually transfer that to the kids.
In some cases, I think, you know, one of the main things, and you probably know this too from the many vets as you help, is that one of the biggest issues is that it's hard to use. And I think that we need to do some better training with a lot of these institutions on how to access it better. You know, we need to do a better job of training employers how to help their veteran employees access these benefits, because it benefits everybody. And so we need to make it more of a national importance that, you know, as part of the HR training, you're trained on what veteran resources are there, and they should be up to date on how to get their employees more training in their specific career field.
I agree 100%. So out of those years from, you know, being injured and before you started Sierra Delta, what was some of the best programs that you were able to use that you like to be able to transition to be successful?
I mean, right off the bat, it's the Semper Fi Fund. I mean, they were also instrumental in helping us get those Marines back together by helping to cover a lot of the cost. But, you know, when I was first injured, I got put on the kill roster, and so they stopped my pay. And I had my first wife and 2 kids back at home, and the Semper Fi Fund stepped in and just paid the bills until they were able to sort it out 3 months later and all that stuff. And then they also helped when the VA turned me down for getting the home remodel on my house, especially for the bathroom where I slipped a lot, missing a leg. The Semper Fi Fund paid for that kind of stuff too, and also helped me get into adaptive sports and a lot of things. And I actually went to work for them after I left Kraft Foods. I became a county veteran service officer for a couple of years in Dane County, but just was really frustrated with how the government kind of approached helping veterans. And so I left and joined the Semper Fi Fund, and I worked for them for about 5 years before I started Sierra Delta and decided to focus just on dogs and how to help veterans, all veterans, just get access to dogs. Because so many of these programs, you know, not all veterans qualify, and that's, you know, I understand the reasoning behind it, but it also makes it difficult for the veterans to know what type of veteran they are. And that's why at Sierra Delta, we made it to where all veterans can join. We have ID.me integrated right in the process, so that's how we verify. Mm-hmm. It's not based on your needs or your disability. It's based on the fact that 68% of American households have a dog. Dogs have long been proven to help humans, and humans and dogs have been working together for 35,000 years. 99% of us don't need an ADA, medical assistance service dogs, and even people with you know, really strong disabilities like blindness aren't using dogs as much for that because of the technology advances that we have in so many areas. And so we created Life Buddy, and that's what we call our dog program. And it provides up to $3,500 and paying a professional trainer to help you reach your goals with your dog, whether that's being a sport dog and doing agility courses or doing dock diving or hunting, or if it's just being a good family dog, or if it's being like if you need an emotional support animal or a service dog, it helps you get on that way. And we're getting service dogs done for $3,500, but there are times when it comes in at like $5,000, and the veterans have been able to make up that difference. Or we can just partner with the local VFWs and American Legions and a lot of these other legacy organizations where they can chip in the difference. But the main thing is just getting the education on all the different ways you can utilize dogs to improve your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. Like, it's the one thing, you have dogs, and you know how it goes. Like, these dogs are never going to put you on hold. They're always ready. They think you're the greatest person ever if you treat them right. And then treating them right doesn't mean spoiling them. It means how to set up a routine with your dog and get the most out of your dog for your individual needs and your individual lifestyle.
So I just got my third dog. I had to, and what I like about Sierra Delta is you guys kind of put it on the veteran to train with the dog and be their persistence and be their number one. Where I know a few of the first program I sent my dog to was Disabled Veteran in Carbondale, Illinois. And I sent my Doberman down there for 6 months and then went down 6 months later, trained with her, and then bring her home. After she had passed, then I went down to Guardian Angels Medical Service Dogs out of Florida, and they found me a dog that was 3 or 4 years old, and she fit me pretty well. But the sad part is when that dog passed, it took me about 5 years, but going through a lot of the, service dog training school and having service dogs before, I decided to do something a little different, which is kind of in the lines of what you guys are doing. I decided to train my dog myself, and I have a trainer that's about an hour and a half away that I take her to every week. She gives me something new to train on. I train with my dog and then take her back, and we just keep building and building till I get to, where my dog should be. And not a lot of organizations provide this grant money to allow the veteran to do that. And I that used to be one of the biggest issues I would run into when I used to pair service dogs, was a lot of the organizations wouldn't accept the veteran's dog that they already had.
Yeah, and that's playing not to lose versus playing to win. I believe in the veteran population. I think that we're accomplished people, not so much victims. And I think one of our main issues in our community as a whole is kind of how the benefits everybody says we're entitled to for serving, how they're delivered to us, because they're predicated on the fact that we are broke or broken. And that always keeps us stuck in that disability mindset, always focusing on what our weaknesses are versus focusing on our strengths. And that's what is different about Sierra Delta, is we're a strength-based, veteran-led community. And we're raising money to give away reasonable and sustainable amount of resources to help the veterans get on the path. But everybody's trying to predict the outcome, and you can't do that so much. You can increase the probability of a positive outcome and reduce the probability of a negative outcome, but you can't guarantee specific outcomes. And we've already delivered 100 grants this year. And so that's already, we normally have been doing about 100 per year, but we started out focusing on the medical assistant service dog. And I've worked with over 25,000 vets of all eras, and almost all of them talk about a dog having an impact on their life. And that's what it's all about, is we miss being a team leader. We miss running a team. And this is what we're trying to present to veterans, is here's a guided way to help you do it on your terms and conditions, and you reap the rewards of what you actually put in the program. And what we've seen is that the veterans that actually need a service dog are getting it done with that grant money and maybe a little bit of extra, but a lot of times you're getting it done with that because our trainers are giving discounts and they're doing the work. The ones that don't need it is like me. Like, I don't want my dog to go everywhere with me. I don't need that. It causes me more anxiety. And I prefer my dog to be at home with my family when I'm traveling. And it just makes me feel better when I'm on the road. And so there's all different types of ways that dogs can help us. And that's the one thing that we wanted to provide differently, was that here's one thing that all veterans can get, but they're going to have to do 80% of the work. Like, they have to find their trainer. They have to find their dog. We guide them on that process. We give them good gouge, good information, but it's on them to build their own 5-paragraph order and then to execute it. And then that gives a sense of agency, a sense of accomplishment, which is what we're missing the most, is that, yeah, we're doing these jobs and we're taking care of our families, but it's not like we're a soldier or Marine or a sailor or any of the airmen, any of these things that we once were, and it meant something to have that uniform on. And so that's why our core values spell EPIC. It stands for empowerment, purpose, innovation, and community. The empowerment is that only you really know what you need to get better, and we're going to give you the resources, this reasonable and sustainable resources to help you get there. Because once you understand how to communicate with your dog, like teaching them new things is not something you need a professional trainer for. You just need to understand how to communicate with your dog and what motivates your dog. And you need to practice a routine that is working, and it just comes down to consistency. The purpose is that those dogs need to go outside. They need to get exercise. They need engagement. They need to be fed. They need to be cared for. And so innovation is that we're doing it in a new way. We're using an online community where people can share their successes, share their struggles, and work together to figure this out and meet other people based on the fact that they served and that they love dogs. And it's not based on the fact of whether they saw combat, whether they were injured, how long they served, none of that. Just the fact that, hey, I served and I still like to serve and I love my dog. And then the community is that 68% of American households have a dog in this country. So it's one thing that I think everybody can understand. And so if we can talk about our dogs, we don't need to talk about politics or laws or ideology as much. We can just talk about the one thing that we all seem to have in common is that we love dogs and that we all, I think, truly want to help each other.
Yeah, I think dogs do a great benefit to any human that they're around. That unconditional love that they give. And like you said, the dog is always ready for you, whether you're ready for the dog or not. And so you might be having a rough time and your dog keys in, and I know my dog loves to give me hugs and just snuggle up next to my neck. And over the last year, that has been such a comfort sometimes when it's needed. And of course, sometimes it's not needed. It's kind of annoying, but it's still lovely.
Yeah. And you don't need a doctor's note for that. And you don't need permission from the government to get that. I mean, that's one of the first things I did was survey all the major medical colleges to see who's training doctors on dogs, and it's zero.
Right. Yeah. Well, and
you know?
So like, I'm a VFW post commander and I'm a senior vice commander at District 9. And I'm moving myself up in the ranks. And this year, our state commander, Commander Yanka, and the auxiliary commander, our president, their big initiative is Blue Star Dogs out of Detroit. And so what this organization does is they actually train these dogs in a jail or a prison, and then they award them to a veteran. And then they stick with them for the next year and a half until they train them up to par or, to their needs. And then they become a therapy dog or a service dog, depending on, what the needs are. Yeah. And
that's a great model. And again, it's like, I'm not saying that it's unneeded. The thing they're always going to be hindered by is capacity. And what I'm trying to do different is scale. Like when you add up all the organizations that are helping veterans with dogs, it only equals 1,000.
Right.
And that's because we're trying to do too much of the front load of the work. Why aren't we asking the veterans what we can do to help ourselves? And again, like I'm not poo-pooing it, but there's a lot to be said of the bond that's built in that training process. And as much as I want to support the prisoners, I want to make this more accessible to more veterans because there's no real need to put this many roadblocks in the way. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, and the ones that need more of these pre-trained dogs, I think there's plenty of organizations that are doing that. What if we, take off some of the burden by offering other ways that people can utilize dogs that they already have? We already kill 800,000 healthy, trainable, and adoptable dogs every year in this country. And there's 18 million vets with an average age of 68.7 years. And so the majority of the veterans don't even qualify for these programs because many of them are post 9/11 only.
Right.
And so, or you need to have a disability rating. And that's just, again, an unnecessary roadblock to where we could actually provide a genuine thank you for your service. And I think that that's possible. Like if we want to do 10,000 vets a year, we need to raise $35 million.
Right.
And if we want to help 100,000, we got to raise 3.5 million. I think that math is right. I was a Marine,
sounds
so
right for me. Math Marines,
right.
I did the MCI, but
yeah.
No, and you've had some great success in not only making this this dream great. I mean, you were on the NFL. You've had a lot of places that are coming out to support you because, to be honest with you, all these roadblocks that you're talking about, you're 100% correct. And you know how many households out there probably use dogs in the same manner that we do, but they're just not called anything.
Right.
And what the benefit of what you're doing is so much greater than these organizations that are, have all these specifications that they have to go through and jumping through all these loops. By the time the veteran gets the dog, he's so sick of the loops that he doesn't even know what he was there for.
Yeah.
I've been to those programs.
We're causing so much of the problem by these unnecessary roadblocks. And what we really should do is start, what does every single vet rate, for a lack of a better term, for just putting the uniform on? I mean, we're all volunteers.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And, especially the last two major wars we had are questionable that we should have even been there. And, I'm not trying to open up that can of worms, but, these men and women we do what our country asks us to do through our representational government. But, it's how we left, going into Iraq and Afghanistan was already questionable, but how we left was definitely questionable too. And it's like, so why can't we just provide something? Because we don't even provide health care for every single veteran, and the VA only takes care of 30% of the veterans that are alive right now. And so there's a bunch of, we just need to reestablish what that social contract is. What are the terms and conditions of being a veteran? And because I do think we have a problem with, we have way too many entitlements, and it doesn't seem to be helping us get better. We seem to be getting worse.
Well, you can't throw money at a problem, and it seems like that's what they always try to do. Instead of, fixing the problem, they try to put a Band-Aid on it and do the least, here, throw this money at it, see where it goes.
And I don't think we fully understand the problem. I mean, if the VA is only servicing 30% of the veterans, the VFW and American Legion combined, I think, have 3.5 million. So what is that, like 20%?
Yeah, it's just
30% maybe?
It's a tiny pinch of what's actually out there.
Yeah, and so we have to have some, put our egos aside for a little bit and say, wait a minute, maybe we don't understand the problem as well as we think we do. And, listen, I lost my leg, but the only three entities I say I'm disabled to is the IRS, the VA, and the DMV. And that's just because how they set up the game. And I've been blessed beyond my worth with everybody that's helped me because of that. And I know it comes from a place of gratitude. But what really almost drove me to suicide in 2006 was, like, everybody was tripping over themselves to help me, but nobody else wanted to help the other 200 Marines that were with me. And they were just as affected by all this, in a lot of ways. And that's what I wanted to change, was that I'm so grateful that everybody wants to help me, but I'm willing to take less if it means I can help more of the veterans just have a baseline of gratitude from their own country, knowing how difficult our political scene is right now.
Yeah, and that's a humble, that is a very humble way to look at things. I totally appreciate that way that you just explained that, because I do agree with you. There needs to be a lot more of that throughout the nation. Just being able to spread the love to everybody and make sure that everybody feels like they're not forgotten, and that, you know, what they've done and what they've sacrificed is not forgotten as well. And so you're right. You know, like you said, you know, a lot of people were focusing on you, but not all the other guys that were there with you. And so when I was talking to Sammy Davis, he's a Medal of Honor recipient at the Real Forrest Gump the other day on our podcast.
Oh, wow, that must have been a cool one.
Yeah, no, that he is probably one of the most humble individuals. But he, you know, any time that anybody asks him about the Medal of Honor, he says, I don't wear it for myself. I don't wear it because of the actions that got it awarded to me. I wear it for the guys that were there with me who never left, the guys who were there with me who did leave and came home. I wear it for the guys. I don't wear it for myself. And, you know, and I think that's a lot of us, you know, military guys when we come back, when, you know, a lot of guys, Purple Heart recipients, say for TBI, you know, when we were in, traumatic brain injury wasn't even on a spectrum. Right. And then when it became on the spectrum in 2007, you know, even then they weren't giving awards for it, or, you know, and I've met numerous guys that been blown up numerous times, and they said they didn't want their Purple Heart. And they said it's just a medal. It doesn't, you know, it that's all it is. I wasn't there for the medal. I was there for the guy on the right and the left.
And what's sad is that so much of the benefits will be tied to that medal. And so I understand what they're saying. This is what I want to change, is that at the end of the day, all of these medals are subjective.
Oh, yeah.
And it used to be that the Purple Heart was the least subjective, but it's a slippery slope. And that's what I'm saying, is that, you know, I'm no more gallant, and I'm no more heroic than anybody else because the bomb caught me. I mean, there was a bunch of other bombs that should have gotten me too. But it's just how it plays out. The actions are the actions, and you hear that from a lot of Medal of Honor recipients, and it's, I think, how a lot of us feel, but we need to address it in a healthier way. Because right now we're tearing ourselves apart over our ego, essentially, instead of working together to make it to where how we want the veteran world to be, it actually is. And that's why I chose dogs, because it was the thing that I think the most of us either have or want in our life. And so it's a great place to start. But I can't do it alone, and that's what I constantly tell the veterans that are part of Sierra Delta, and what I say to veterans that I'm trying to get to join Sierra Delta, is that this isn't my organization. It should be our organization. And how we're running it is you know, trying to do the best to help the most amount of people gain the most from their relationship with the dog is essentially our mission. And what that is, you set those goals, and then we give you the appropriate education and resources to achieve those goals. But sometimes, you know, like 60% of the dogs on the market don't have the capacity, both intellectually or emotionally, behaviorally, to pass the public access test. Mm-hmm. But almost all of them can provide something in your life that can just bring some hope, bring some joy. Like, we have a social media campaign right now. So many of the veterans are talking about the joy that their dogs bring in their life, that we started, like, tell us your abundant joy story. You know, and send it on your dog if you want to. It could be anything. But, you know, you don't need a dog to open doors for you. You need that teammate again. You need that life buddy that at the end of the day, like, I know I can hit the trails with my dog and we have a good time, and I'm able to just put everything down for a little bit and just get better perspective on things. And it feels like I'm patrolling in the woods again with my Marines.
And they're done that.
And there's a lot that we miss about the nastiness of war, because you have to get into the right mind space in order to take on that responsibility. And I think we're learning more and more that war is not, it's you know, it's not needed. Like, we're not gaining anything. The last two major wars we have, we didn't really gain anything but a bunch of debt and dead bodies and injured people. So, you know, it doesn't mean that we're bad people because we're starting to realize that maybe war isn't the way we can best solve the issues in our world anymore. It just means that we have to reframe kind of how we are treating ourselves. And we shouldn't, like, I shouldn't be entitled to more benefits because of being injured more. Like, we should all have a baseline of benefits. And then, yeah, I understand that, like, it would be impossible for me to get the prosthetics that the VA gives me.
The one prosthetic, and then if you have to have a second one. So it's funny you mentioned that. I have a friend right now that we're about to try to help out. TSGLI benefits are always changing, right? And so in 2012, they amended it to say salvage limbs. And, you know, do you think anybody went out to the guys and said, is that limb a salvage limb? Because that could rate $50K. And then in 2017 or 18, they amended it again. You know, eyesight's worth money. You know, a lot of the things, like loss of organ use or organ or parts, you know, also now rate stuff. And I'm just put a congressional hearing up for this young lady who, you know, lost a leg. The other one was salvaged. And, you know, she can't reproduce. And next thing you know, here, 10 years later, that's a part of the TSGLI benefits. And now we have to fight for it. And the VA has turned them down. And then you have to get a congressman involved. Then you have to have that hearing. And of course, they rate it 100%. And they make it such a hassle. And then when it comes to, you guys getting prosthetics, they only allow you one. And then if that one starts wearing out.
I haven't had that issue, but that's what I'm saying is that I know how to advocate for myself. And that's the thing that I'm saying, that we've made all this impossible, because it is possible, but you have to know the right people. You have to push the right levers. And that's where I'm saying is that we've created a lot of obstacles that we don't need. I mean, I have 3 prosthetics right now, and I've had anywhere from up to 6 or 7 at one time. You know, I was doing a lot more. I was running marathons, climbing mountains, so, lifting weights heavily. So each one of those, you have to show a need. So I was able to show a need for that. And I got the support, but it did take effort. But I've also been in the VA system now for 20 years. And, I got a master's in social work with emphasis on military life. I was an accredited veterans benefit officer. So
you know what you're doing.
I know what I'm doing, but it's still a challenge for me, even knowing the laws. And that's what I'm saying. And like, where I see a lot of it is the bureaucracy that we could reduce. And it's by trusting us, the veterans, more and giving us more access to do it within reason. I'm not saying it's just an empty piggy bank, but I mean, we're giving the VA $800 billion annually. I think if we understood how they're spending their money, we could do it better.
I would agree with you. I mean, there's a lot that, it's constantly changing. At least that now our guys who are getting out, they can get their benefits. Like up here in Michigan, it's around 6 months, 6 to 9 months for them to go from start to finish. And when I got out in 2006, it took me 4 years. I left Walter Reed at 50%. And it took me 8 years and all that education to get to 100%. And that was, Yeah, no, they definitely make it hard.
The rating scale makes people worse, not better, because it gets them focusing on how to get to 100%. And it's like, like veterans aren't entitled to health care unless they were retired or they have a 30% rating. Mm-hmm. And then their families aren't entitled to health care unless they get to 100%. And then that's when your property taxes are reimbursed. That's when your family gets access to dependent education assistance. So you got everybody trying to get to 100. I mean, that's what I learned when I first started Sierra Delta, was that when we had tiers, like $15,000 for a service dog, all the way down, everybody was trying to get to the top tier. And so when I compressed it and tried to get to scale and gave what it's covering 95% of the need. Is that 3,500? Now we can, and the veterans are happier because now they have more agency in this whole process, and they're getting what they want / need instead of just taking whatever somebody gives them. And what I've seen is that the majority of these pre-trained dogs, the veterans aren't using 80-90% of what that dog's trained to do.
Of course.
And that's not fair to the dog, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not abuse, but it is waste.
Well, and
we're taking a longer time because our egos are in the way.
What also, I think, do you get the pre-trained dog of what they think your needs are? And, of course, that's through an application, them talking to you on maybe Zoom or, a lot of these organizations, like the second place that I got mine was down in Florida. I live in Michigan, right? So they trained a dog on what I needed or what I told them I needed. But when I got down there and I got introduced to my dog, it was a 2-week training session. I went right back up to Michigan. Right. And so there wasn't a lot of time to, watch and adapt and learn as we go and have them looking out over you. I mean, luckily I already had a service dog for quite a while at that time before I got when she passed and I got my second one. So I kind of knew what to do, but that's when I went to service dog training school. And then with her, and I was kind of curious, does Wisconsin have state laws for service dogs like Michigan does?
I'm sure they do. I mean, what I've noticed is the majority of places are dog friendly. And most people want me to bring my dog because I run this organization. I'm like, no, my dog's not a service dog. I don't want to do that. Well, no, we'll make an exception for you. And I'm like, no, I don't like having my dog. So it's like, these laws are also, like, I don't pay much attention to them. I mean, the federal ADA law is vague on purpose.
Yes.
Right? And so, and this is what I'm saying, the training is not so much what the dog needs to know, it's what the handler needs to know.
Of course.
And that's where I say, like, 80% of the medicine is helping these veterans understand how to work their dog, and that they will fall to the level of what they need. And we have been conditioned, we get rewarded by, presenting our challenges in the most debilitating way versus, like PTSD, I think, comes in waves. I mean, I've talked to a lot of veterans, even me. So it's like, it's not something that's constant, and it is something that we can overcome. Now, if you're worried that if you lose your PTSD rating, you'll lose your benefits, now you can't get better.
Veterans, don't leave benefits on the battlefield. VetServe delivers intel, firepower, and follow-through from VA mortgage loans and real estate to financial services and disability. Deploy to vetserve.us.
Right. No, I agree with you completely. And I do think it runs in waves, too, because I'll have good months.
Yeah.
And, I'll have 2 or 3 good months, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'll hit rock bottom, or not rock bottom, but I can tell that things are getting worse.
But we have to be honest, too, is PTSD isn't exclusive to the veteran community. Like, if you don't have PTSD in this country, you haven't been paying attention since 2001.
Right. It can go for a variety of things. I mean, even car accidents can give somebody PTSD about driving a car, depending. I mean, it doesn't have to be combat.
The state of the world right now, right? Everybody has high anxiety. Everybody's on alert. Everybody's being vigilant. And what I'm hoping that we can accomplish, if we can get like 10,000 veterans annually through dog training, is we can lead by example, that we're able to get over this in a simple practice of working with our dogs. We've been able to find more joy in life, and because it's hard to be on your phone if you're engaged with your dog.
Oh, of course. And I think a lot of people are on their phones way too much.
Yeah, we have information overload, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, a lot of veterans give up because it's just too much of a hassle to get these things. And if we remove a lot of that stuff, in any cost savings of delivering the services, plus we would have better outcomes. And I think that's what we all want, is better outcomes. And what we've seen is, in the last year and a half, we've given out 208 grants. And every one of those veterans are doing better.
So explain to me the grant process.
So, they join Sierra Delta, and ID&E verifies them. Then you're asked to build a profile within our community. And then there's a Life Buddy space. And then you go through an orientation course that just kind of talks about our process, basic dog training 101, right? Like reminding people that these are not robots, that it's a living creature. And so it's a partnership, it's a journey. And things that they just need to know right off the bat on proper dog handling and proper dog communication. And then you take a small little test, and then the application opens. And the application just asks for your story, your bio. It's prompted with questions. You know, give us a little bit about where you're from, who you served with, what you're doing now, and then some goals for your dog, you and your dog. Like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and how do you think it's going to impact your life? And then some pictures of them while they were in service and some pictures of them currently with their dog. And then a training plan and quote from a professional trainer that they decided to use. So they can work on their own time, and then once they submit, you know, we're doing roughly about 17 to 20 a month, and I review the grants twice a month, and all of them that are complete are getting approved. And if we don't have, you know, if we end up with like 25 in a month, you know, those other 5 or 7 just roll to the next month. But most people are getting through if they come in and do their work and build their plan, and they have opportunities to meet with me live, some other community team leaders live. There's a bunch of recordings they can watch, you know, and so we help them in this process. It's no different than finding a mechanic or finding a contractor or anything. And, you know, there's plenty of good dog trainers out there. It's just a matter of finding the one that you can work with that you feel is going to help you achieve your goals. And then so once you submit that, we make contact with the trainer if they're not already in our system. And then if it's approved, the trainer sends us the invoice, we pay, and they get started in, you know, inside of 4 weeks.
That's great.
So a lot of people are getting through within 6 weeks. You know, they're getting started on training. And then some are even opting to buy additional classes after they're done from their trainers. But a lot of them get the free comeback to their group training anytime they want, or pack walks and stuff like that. So they're building a community not only with other veterans in their area that they're meeting online through our digital community. I mean, they're also meeting people at these dog training organizations.
So if you're a veteran and say you started filling out the application and whatnot, and they've never really went through and know what a good dog trainer is that something Sierra Delta would help that person with? Like, say there was a guy in Florida or Texas or California, and they say, hey, I don't know how to search for a dog trainer that's going to help me that I know will be credible. Is that where you guys might step in and say, well,
Yeah, and that's part of the little class that we give them is, hey, you just do a Google search and search dog trainer, dog behavioralist, you know, service dog training, hunting dog training. You know, you just put in that in and it comes up. And, I mean, there's over 40,000 dog trainers just on LinkedIn.
Okay. All right.
I mean, and so what, in the beginning when we were assigning dog trainers, we had too many personality conflicts. It wasn't that the trainer wasn't a good trainer, that the people weren't getting along. And so that's why we teach them to go, you know, research the trainer, look at the reviews. All the trainers provide a free 1-hour assessment of you and your dog. And so they'll get to know your dog a little bit and tell you what's possible, what's not possible, and how much it costs and what's all entailed. And so what we give them is we give them a budget because it's up to $3,500, but many of these grants are coming in under $3,000 because the most common need is essentially, you know, a level 2 or even a level 3 community canine good citizen. And so it's, you know, there's a bunch of different ways to get this done. And what we've seen is the ones that are in an activity like hunting or dock diving or agility course running or scent detection, like we're seeing the most success with them. In order for that dog to be good at that sport, they have to be really good at their commands and really good. You have to work them a lot.
Oh, of course.
And so, like, we have trainers that come in once a month. We do trainer talks, and they speak on, like, you know, how to find good trainers, what their philosophies are, and those are recorded so people can go back and watch them. People can attend them live and ask questions live. You know, it's like just we all know how to do this. Like, it's dogs. Like, dogs and humans have been working at it for 35,000 years, and the way to get the best out of your dog hasn't changed that much over that time. It's consistency. It's, that's why we try to convince everybody to look at this like a practice, a journey, instead of a destination. Because it's, even if your dog is pre-trained, like, we see a lot of these dogs regressing because the veteran doesn't really know how to maintain the training. And that's what's great about what you're saying that other group did, is that they're staying with them for a year and a half. And that's where I say our job really begins, is once training complete. And that's why we've developed the Life Force program, which helps people learn how to be coaches within Sierra Delta and volunteer, similar to like VFW or American Legion. It's just online, and it's just centered around dog training. Because if I can create more people like me that have enough knowledge to help guide somebody, like, we're not authorities in their life, we're just guides.
Of course.
We're just good NCOs. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And here, this is what you need to do to be successful with your dog. And, the main thing is it's nobody's fault if you're not successful. It either means that your dog's not capable or that you're not doing enough work in between training sessions to achieve said goal. And there's no shame in that. And that's where, like, why I trademarked Life Buddy is so that we can create a whole different approach to getting help from a dog. And that hopefully it can influence our civilian counterparts to do the same, invest in that relationship and understand how to best utilize your dog. It's like having a gym membership but never going, or going every day and not eating right. You're not going to have the results you want unless you actually work the dog.
Well, and I was watching some of the stuff that you've done over the past, 7-8 years. And you said, if we could get humans to act more like dogs, what a better world it would be. And
100%.
I kind of chuckled, yeah. And then I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? He's kind of right. Like, dogs, they're not mad at each other for long periods of time. You might reprimand your dog for doing something bad, but 5-10 minutes later, he's there licking your face and doesn't remember what he got in trouble for.
Right.
And just think if humans were that way, and they had a lot more compassion, a lot more caring, and a bigger heart. Just think about what the world could accomplish then.
Yeah, once we let go of judgment, let go of our ego, and I think one of the main issues we have in the veteran population is that the DOD did a great job making us all warriors. No one's really explained to us what it means to be a good veteran. And I think, what we're trying to build at Sierra Delta is a community that, at the basis, we're just trying to help people improve their relationship with their dogs to improve their own life. And then that Life Force program is a way for us to get involved in how we want to, in a true volunteer sense, but in a way to where we can see the more work we do, the more resources we generate, the more of our fellow veterans are getting at least, inclusion into the community is already automatic, but getting access to that grant, that's where I'm always, I'm trying to recruit as many veterans as I can, but I've been raising $1 million a year for 8 years, and we finally figured out a way to spend that money appropriately to maximize what we're raising. But if we want to gain, we got to raise more money. And I know that's like the hardest thing, right? Because everybody's like, I don't want to ask for money. I don't want to ask for money. It's probably why I'm having a hard time, raising more money, is like, I really don't want to beg. And that's what I love about our partnership with Blue Buffalo. We're going into our 7th year with them, and what they do is they run a sales campaign once a year, and it used to raise $275,000 for us. They upped it to $600,000, which is, again, 60% of our operating budget. And they'd run that through Walmart. And so, it's based off of the sales. And that's where I want to live, is we can just get a 0.5% here, 1% there of profits of the stuff that we're all doing. We won't have to beg for money.
Yeah.
And we can help more veterans get what they need. And then we as veterans need to polish our brand. And we need to show people that their investment in us is actually making a difference. And we can do that with what we can do in our own communities. and being that sense of pride again and helping to bring back more grassroots community-based movement of just like every time I go talk at schools, I always say, like, y'all can fix the world. You can pick up trash as you see it. I try to do that all the time, and I train my kids to do the same thing and try to convince everybody else of just picking up some trash.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things that we can do again can make a huge difference instead of waiting for a miracle from somewhere that isn't probably going to come, So we might as well do what we can. And that's what I think the beautiful thing is about focusing on dogs and veterans. Like, we don't do first responders and police and fire. Like, I think that they have very important jobs, but I really wanted to focus on the veterans because one of the great things about the veteran population is that it's one of the smallest minority groups in our country, but it's the most diverse by far. Every type of person that calls themselves an American has worn that uniform at some point in time. So if we can focus on how we can maximize this relationship for the betterment of both beings, which I think is pretty high on everybody's give a shit meter, we can then extrapolate that information and help other communities do the same thing. And then maybe we can learn on reward-based policies that stimulate growth. We have we're about to release a program with the Department of Labor that we've created a Life Buddy apprenticeship program, which allows anybody to join that and be in the pool to become a dog trainer. And so any dog training company, mom and pop or big company, doesn't matter, that hires out of that pool, they'll get an IRS tax credit for 2 years. The apprentice will get a Department of Labor cost of living stipend for up to 2 years to help offset the entry-level cost it'll take to learn dog training for 2 years, because that's all it takes to become an accredited dog trainer is 2 years.
Yeah.
And so if we can create more opportunities for people to even have side hustles as dog trainers, we can then raise the overall IQ by making it more approachable, more affordable, more fun to work with a professional trainer with our dogs. And then we won't need as many laws to protect us from people that don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, when back in 2014, that's why I created the Michigan service dog laws here. It was just because I was mistreated by U.S. Airways, and I started seeing that airlines have autonomy, so they fly from state to state, and they don't really have to, follow some of the same rules. And if they do, they get a slap on the hand, so it's not that important. So they don't pay attention to it that much. And so we made some service dog laws, but one of the most important part of that service dog law was the state of Michigan Civil Department made a state of Michigan service dog patch. And so what it is it's a free voluntary patch. You put in a little application to the state of Michigan where your dog got trained. They vet out where your dog got trained, make sure it's a viable place, because back in the day there was so many places that were like pop up by night service dog training places that were taking advantage of people. And so what they were trying to do is create a list of viable places to get your dog trained. And so as people were coming in to get this free patch that showed any employer, any restaurant, any hotel, if they have this patch by the state of Michigan has already verified that that's a credible dog. And it just helped at no cost to the person. It just helped them not create, so many questions by facilities or places. But like you said, nowadays, Home Depot, Myers, and a lot of other places, they allow dogs in there now where, 15 years ago they didn't.
Right, because there's money behind it. We spend $120 billion annually on pet goods. So there's money behind it, and that's what I'm trying to say is let's just build an economy that supports the needs the best off of what that economy is generating. And, there's an easy way to fix all this. They can treat dog trainers like they treat doctors with handicap placards. They could register as a dog trainer, maintain a certain standard, and have a number. And so if they sign off on the dog being a service dog,
it goes directly back onto them.
Onto them. And again, that gives them more reason to ensure that they're following up, because right now it's on the handler. And what we have done is, like, by not guaranteeing our veterans are going to make service dog, like, if they're not passing the test, that the test is the test. You can keep trying.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're not allowing quote-unquote fake service dogs, but what we are seeing is that once the veterans understand this better, they realize that the dog, what they got is what they actually need. So they're not upset. And they're playing by the rules that's afforded to them. You know, we can't have everybody with a dog on an airplane.
Right.
You just can't do it. And so that's where, like, it's really hard for these airlines to sort out what's what. And, you know, that's something I think a brand like Sierra Delta can accomplish, because we've worked with over 900 trainers nationwide. And, you know, so the more veterans we get in, the more the veteran knows. It's just like at the end of G.I. Joe, the more you know, the more you win, or whatever.
So
I forget what it goes with.
If you're a trainer and say you wanted to, you know, donate some time, or you wanted to be a part of Sierra Delta, how would a trainer go about, would they just contact you, write you an email, or is there like
a veteran? They got to work to have trainers that are advertising that they're part of the Sierra Delta program, and they're recruiting veterans to them.
Okay.
We work through the veteran. You know, so we can verify their business. I mean, if they have an EIN number and they're insured, that's basically our standard.
Okay.
You know, we look at their reviews, we look at their websites to get reviews, we look at their websites. We're trusting the veterans as grown, accomplished people to make good choices. And that's why I tell them to take your time, interview a couple of trainers, you know, use me as a resource to bounce off, like, hey, this is what they're telling me. And this is, you know, seeing so many different training plans, I see all kinds, and we just make sure that it's reasonable. We're not nitpicking the price. You know, if the trainers want to donate their time, you know, they just give us a discount on the training plan. Like, I don't accept free training because I need some way to hold you accountable.
Of course.
Right? And what I'm trying to figure out is, what is this actually going to cost to help the most amount of veterans have a positive relationship with the dog in a reasonable and sustainable way.
Right. And a lot of veterans out there don't have the resources or the amount of money to just go out and do it themselves.
Right. I mean, it's just intimidating. And so this way they're getting guided, and they're getting some grant money, again, to help cover a large portion of the price. In many cases, it's 100% of the price, but it really comes down to need. And that's, again, the agency. So if they can't afford it, they're still getting some help. But we have many people who are finding ways to afford it, because now, like, what they need next doesn't cost as much.
Mm-hmm.
Even myself, like, I just brought on a local trainer to help me just with some issues that I was stuck on with my dog. I got it fixed, and I paid her, I think, a total of like $300 for like 4 sessions. So, like, that's not something I already got a grant back in 21 for $1,900 to have my dog trained, and me. And so that was good enough for me to begin working on it. But like I said, he's what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Is he service dog qualified? Absolutely not, you know. And so that's what I wanted. That's what I needed. And that's where a lot of other veterans, because we don't realize just how much we've been programmed to lead with our disabilities, because that's the only way that we can get help. Lead with what's wrong, and that's what stays on our forefront of our mind more. And again, if you just want to be a part of the community and don't feel like you need professional help with your dog, then join and just be a part of the community. Maybe join Life Force and help other veterans, you know, make good decisions with the resources that we're providing them.
I think this is a very unique nonprofit that you started, that when I was reading about it over the last couple of weeks, I really like the program that you've put together. It's something that I haven't seen in any other dog organization. And what I love about it, too, is that you're empowering the veteran to do what he needs to do for that dog, and creating an avenue for that veteran to feel like he accomplished something versus, it's not a handout, it's a hand up. Right?
Yeah, and it's helping, all the veterans, the he's and the she's, that, we were trained to be good trainers. We were trained to solve complicated issues. And when we actually think about what's bothering us, it's that we're being coddled. And we don't understand it because the people that we are kind of have authority over our benefits are telling us that's what we need. But yet the majority of them haven't lived what we lived. And I'm not saying that they can't empathize, but I'm saying, like, we just need to have a more honest talk. We keep trying to shove a round peg into a square hole, and it's not working.
Yeah. Yep. So, if somebody wanted to donate to Sierra Delta, what would be the best way to do it?
You go to SierraDelta.com and click donate. And then if you need to mail a check, just go down. There's the P.O. box, or there's an office in Madison that collects mail for us. But we're all virtual. That's how we keep a lot of the costs down. We don't have any employees. I'm paid as a consultant to run Sierra Delta, but I'm truly trying to build a veteran-led community. I think we can establish chapters next year and work in conjunction with the VFW and American Legion. Just between those two legacy organizations, there's 18,001 clubhouses.
Right.
And, even if Sierra Delta has to pay rent, I think it's worth it to keep those, to just add another layer of support from these, institutions that have been around for 100 years or more. We got to figure out a way to reconfigure the existing infrastructure to better serve the veteran with not adding any more cost. And in some cases, I think we need to find ways to shed cost. And we need to lead by example on, our nation has a responsibility to support veterans and other populations as we deem fit, but we need to do it in a reasonable and sustainable way.
Right. And you're only talking, so less than 0.5% of America are in the military or in the service. Compared to World War II, it was 12%. Go to Vietnam, it was 6.5%. As our wars keep evolving and our technology evolving, our military is getting smaller and smaller because the things that we needed thousands and thousands of people to do, now drones are taken care of, or, robotic dogs.
Yeah. I mean, we've been stable for the past 25 years. There's been 2 million men and women on active and reserve, but you look at that 20-year war, there's only 3 million that deployed. You compare that to World War II, and during the 2000s, we've had 365 million people. When you compare to World War II, you had only 138 million people, but 16.5 million deployed for a 6.5-year war. So more people had the shared experience. And then back at home, people were rationing, they were working to support the war. So everybody was making sacrifices versus now, we're making sacrifices that I don't think a lot of people can understand. And I don't know if we can truly describe it in a way, because it is something unreal. What I thought war was going to be and what I saw, and granted, I was only there 4 months before I was injured. So, it's not like I knew everything about war. Mm-hmm. But, from my perspective, and what I hear a lot of other veterans saying, a lot of other people have experienced, it's a hard thing to explain even to each other sometimes. And that's the other beautiful thing about dogs is I think we all get it intuitively. Like, dogs and humans have been working together for so long. I think it's part of both of our DNAs. Mm-hmm. And so it's a way to connect and still respect that we all have different experiences when we serve in the military, because we all come from such diverse backgrounds and we have such diverse experiences in the military. But just kind of drawing it down to one thing that is, most common with the most amount of people, I think gives us the best chance for success and finding ways to overcome these challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a lot of things right on the dot here. And like I said, I love the way that you have conformed this Life Buddy program, the Life Force program, and all the things you're doing. And hell, I want to support it. And so if I can ever do anything to help you guys, let me know, and I definitely will do that as well.
Join the community and be a leader, man.
Yeah.
Get in there and engage with the vets. Talk about what you're doing. Again, it's a great platform. It's all centered around getting better. It's not centered around no one. I make from the get-go, we're not talking about politics. We're not talking about religion. We're not talking about the VA,
right?
DOD. We're just focused on how we're getting better. People are getting together on their own. Down in Nashville, I think we've issued out like 50 of the 208 grants right down in there, and we've got other pockets. And we got people, 84-year-olds all the way down to 24-year-olds, every type, color, whatever, and it's working. The only thing that it worries me is, can I raise enough money?
So what do you have planned for this year to try to raise enough money? Do you have some things planned?
Yes, we got the big Blue Buffalo campaign at Walmart from September to November. So we're going to be asking everybody to go ask their Walmart starting in August, make sure that you're on the list to get the Sierra Delta Blue Buffalo display. Definitely asking a lot of our people that receive grants to go in there and tell them, hey, I live here. I benefit from this organization. All the other supporters going out there doing the same, because it makes a difference. One of the reasons why Blue Buffalo has stuck with us is they tell us that every time they do a sales campaign with us, they generate double digits above what their best expectations are. And that's just what I'm saying is the power of the brand of us veterans, especially if we're centered around positivity. We're centered around, we've had some challenges, but we're overcoming, and we're still, active members ready to serve. Sierra Delta stands for service and dogs. It's a true thank you for your service and a challenge to continue to serve, and a way to build that bond with a dog that's going to make a positive impact in your life. And so joining and just being a leader, man, there's a lot of people that have questions, and I can't get to them all. So the more men and women we have in there that are willing to, lend a hand in helping people figure out dogs, but also figure out just how to be a good veteran.
Yeah.
And how best to utilize their benefits, and, what all is going on. And so at the end, I don't know how many grants we'll do, but the stuff that I'm talking about to really focus on in Life Force doesn't cost us anything. It's just our time and effort.
Yeah, it's volunteering.
Sometimes the most, And so just truly basing it on volunteering, and then trying to teach people how to fundraise, and then empowering people to go do fundraisers. Again, we don't have to make this any more complicated than it is.
Yeah, stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Just use the wheel that's already there. Just grease it a little bit.
Wisconsin VFW picked us as their special project last year, I believe. Not this past. I know you guys' year just ended, but 2 years ago then. And it was fantastic. I think between them and the auxiliary, they raised $60,000, which was amazing. That's like 40 training grants.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And if you're a VFW out there that you're looking for something to support, I look up Sierra Delta. I think it would be a great opportunity to get the people around you engaged, take care of our four-legged friends, and take care of our veterans all in the same token. You can kill a lot of birds with one stone there.
Yeah, I would love to even train one of the officers in VFWs, or put together a class for them where they get the training, and then they can be another resource for the men and women in their community to come in there and learn how to put together their plan.
Yeah.
And get training. Yeah. We could also utilize the VFW to bring in a trainer and, give some one-on-one classes to just some members that just want to learn some basics but don't want to go through a whole training regimen. There's a bunch of things we can do.
Yeah, I'd like your, outside the box thinking. I think there needs to be more of that because the more people you can help, the farther you're going to get. Yeah,
and again, we got to figure out ways that help us too. So, there's a lot of the stress in running this nonprofit is just trying to make sure I've got all the bureaucracy right.
Yeah. There is a lot.
The vets is the easy part, even if it is challenging, because it's so rewarding to see when they get it, when they see no, I do have the power to actually live a good life. And this is what I get from my service and how to maximize it. And, I can just be proud of that and go about my time and continue to try to be successful, utilizing a lot of the gifts that we were given by serving in the first place. There's a lot of things that we learned and a lot of, environments we were put into that, were hard, but they should have made us stronger. And so we should be able to do harder things now after service. And that's where I'm trying to focus that Life Buddy program. Just give me what you can give me, and let's see how far we can go, and then see how many more people we can help. And we already have all these other organizations that are helping, that really small percent. When you look at out of the 18 million veterans, they estimate that only 150,000 of us need ADA medical assistance service dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, less than 0.5%.
Yeah.
But that's where everybody's focused. And so let's see what happens when we open it up and just give the veterans clear left and right lateral limits. I mean, that's where we thrive, is understanding what the rules of the game are and let us play the game how we see fit.
I agree. Well, BJ, it's been great having you on. And so SierraDelta.org, is that the website?
SierraDelta.com. When we started it, .org was already taken, but not being used. And then once the guy figured out what we were doing, a few years later, he gifted us the SierraDelta.org, but we just kept it SierraDelta.com because I didn't really know how to add in another thing. One of these days, we'll probably add it.
Yep,
but, again, that's where the more we all chip in and just join and just see what we can do and help others and then help ourselves when we need it, we'll get better.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, I can't wait for this podcast to go out tomorrow, and I'll be selling Sierra Delta as well. I talk with a lot of people that do a lot of things with dogs, and I want to say thank you for everything you've done, not only for our veterans, but, a dog helps the families as well. And just being able to be a providing resource for everybody that you've already done over the last 8 years. And your work with the Semper Fi Fund, I believe that's how I met you a long time ago.
Yeah.
Indeed. It's all selfless serving of the community, of our veterans. And I applaud you for everything that you've done. And I can't wait to see, how big that you make Sierra Delta here in the future, because I have a feeling with this outside-the-box thinking and the way that you have created this platform, I think it will go a lot longer than a lot of these dog places that are out there.
Well, it can't just be me. It has to be us, or else it's not going to grow. So that's it, and I appreciate it. And again, we have veterans that are willing to come on your show, too, and they have interesting stories to boot besides just what they did with Sierra Delta. So if you want me to make that happen, I can put you in touch with hundreds of men and women with great stories that are using dogs in many different ways.
Yeah, so I'm going to be donating I'm going to be doing a whole month of dog stuff here in the future. We have our dog month here in Michigan, and I'm going to spend all 4 podcasts that month specifically talking to dog organizations and stuff to just create awareness. And of course, if anybody hasn't seen, we made a new website called warfightersunited.com. Everything that we talk about on this podcast will be on that website, from the podcast to hyperlinks to the people that we're talking to their organizations. You can also, anytime anybody has a question, they can email me at warfightersunitedpodcast@gmail.com. And I always get back to everybody, usually within a day or two. But BJ, thanks for coming on Warfighters United, and I can't wait to work with you here in the future.
Me too, brother. Keep up the great work.
All right. Thanks, BJ.